Welcome to the Afternoon Tea Podcast.
We're your hosts / baristas,
Krish.
Lisa and Bella.
In the cafe, we'll be discussing about mental health and well-being.
On our menus, there is no sugarcoating, no filters, no scripts, just raw and honest conversations.
We will be discussing some sensitive topics, so if you feel like anything affects you or you want help, please go to youtv.co.uk/support. Let's spill the tea.
Cheers.
Welcome back to Afternoon Tea Podcast. I'm Lisa and I'm one of your hosts today, and I'm joined here with Bella. Hi. Today I have just some plain English tea. Today I have some squash. I thought I'd mix it up a little bit. And today we are joined with Paddy. Paddy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honour to be here with you two.
It's an honour to have you here. So what's your drink of choice today?
My drink of choice is coffee with 1 sugar and milk.
Any particular reason?
I need caffeine.
Fair enough. Don't we all? Fair enough. So today's episode is called There's Truth in the Tea. And despite the fact that none of us have tea, even though I'm pretty sure Bella does. Other than the fact that Bella has tea, let's talk about social media, self-esteem. And so to start off with, tell us about your profession.
So I work as a mental health and digital wellbeing campaigner. I've done it voluntarily for 4 years. And now, ever since Monday, I'm full-time as a digital wellbeing campaigner as campaign director at FlipGen.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How did you come about to this profession?
So going right back, I'm 21 now. I've had struggled with OCD and depression since I was 13. And then during COVID, it got a lot worse. So all my OCDs around harming other people. So it was okay until 2020. It was a struggle, but it was manageable. And then during 2020, during COVID, when all you saw in the news was harming other people, I hit a very low point where I didn't really want to be here anymore. I was going a bit mad. My parents would stay in the room with me when I went to sleep, just because I couldn't be left on my own. And then fast forward 12 months, my OCD turned from COVID and the guilt around harming people to a guilt around what I'd put my family through, what I put myself through, and I managed to get support. So I've had counselling since I was 13, and without that support, I wouldn't be here. So there was guilt around the fact that I managed to get support and other people didn't. So I decided one thing that could kind of ease the guilt I felt was sharing my experience and trying to help other people, because I thought at least if I do that, then I can look back with pride rather than with guilt. So I started sharing my story. I started to volunteer with mental health charities, and then from that, I did that for about 3 years, and then FlipGen came along, and I think we'll probably talk about it later, but one of the issues around mental health and what's causing a lot of the mental health problems at the moment amongst young people is social media. So I thought, I want to tackle one of the root causes of the crisis. So I got involved in FlipGen and all around the intersection between mental health and digital wellbeing.
So how did you land on the name FlipGen?
So it was founded by a married couple who are incredible. But so FlipGen is flipping the script for the next generation, which Paul, who was one of the founders, he's like a creative genius. I don't know how his mind works, but I've never met somebody with a mind like his. And he came up with it. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to empower and enrich the next generation to flip the script on what's going on. We're often seen as the anxious generation. We're seen as passive consumers of the digital world, the social media, but we're trying to flip that and say, actually, young people can take control and really be empowered to control what's going on and make a change.
That's lovely.
Is that almost, it sounds to me like a lot of the work you're trying to do is being able to help young people make informed choices about the world and about particularly what they see on social media. Is that along the right kind of line? Yeah,
exactly. So we've got two sides that we really advocate for. So regulations are one side and education is the other, and they can't really work on their own. They've got to work together. And our kind of saying is no tech, not no tech. So KNOW, not NO tech. So where we advocate for education and young people really making empowered choices, because I just think one of the issues is once you get a phone, there's no real induction into having a phone. There's no real induction into going on social media. You don't know when you're 13. You don't know what an algorithm is. You don't know that autoplay keeps you online. So if you start to know that and you start to be mindful of the way you use social media, the way you use your phone, then you've got a much better chance of being able to combat it. So if I mindfully think, I'm going to go on Instagram because I want to see what my friends are doing, and I know that it's going to try and keep me on there for longer, then I've got a much better chance of being able to log off after 20 minutes rather than just staying on mindlessly scrolling because I don't know that it's trying to do that.
You previously mentioned how seeing in 2020 people being violent on screens and stuff like that sort of affected you.
Yeah.
Other than seeing that on the news, was there anything on social media that you think should be changed, and how desensitization is like a big impact for a lot of people?
Yeah, there's so much in terms of because we kind of discussed the algorithms and the issues with how social media is designed, but there's so much harm on social media. If you look at, for example, some of the stuff around eating disorders and that kind of thing, I know people who have seen that content, and it's really harmful to people's self-esteem and kind of glorifying calorie deficits and unhealthy expectations and normalizes, massive diets that just aren't healthy. And I think that's one real issue, particularly amongst girls and young women. Obviously I can't speak for that, but at Flip Gym we're youth led, and my there's two youth directors, and my co-director is talks very openly about that, and how she couldn't count the amount of her friends who were coming to her for help, and because they'd seen this content. And I think it's the normalization. And you've got similar things around around aesthetics, injections, and it just gets normalized online, and that's really harmful. So you've got that one element, and obviously I think more the male side, and social media allows toxic influences to grow, and whereas they wouldn't be able to reach young boys, or if they did, then parents and guardians could find that out. It's allowed and it's very much normalized, and these influences can reach young boys very easily without parents knowing.
You mentioned about obviously eating disorders and, the way that social media portrays it and the impact that it has on young women and girls. Do you think you've seen a similar sort of impact when it comes to young boys because of a lot of the pressures when it comes to things like gym, things like protein eating, or there's a lot of gymfluencers, as I believe they're called, who have that extreme dieting process for maximum protein and carbs and stuff like that. Do you see a similar sort of impact in the way that perhaps traditional anorexia and bulimia would affect young women and girls, in the way that this gymfluencers affect young boys? Yeah,
for sure. I think that because I'd say it's probably a bit newer, there's less talked about, it's less recognized, but looks maxing, it is horrendous, I think. And the way there's nothing wrong with wanting to be the best version of yourself. I think this is, it kind of gets, it gets mistaken for that it's a fine line between being the best version of yourself and wanting to improve and meditating and going to the gym for your mental health, and actually doing it because you think you need a better jawline to get women. And I think there's a lot of, as you say, toxic influences, gym influencers. There's really positive ones who go to the gym and show workouts, which is really good. But it's when it goes over that line of you need to do this and you're a better person externally because you do all of this. And I'm lucky I've not fallen into it where I've got to a stage where I've obsessively gone to the gym. But certainly I've seen and I felt it myself. Like I went through a period where, I was lonely. I wasn't happy with who I was, and was looking at how things you can do at home to make yourself better looking and go up that, I think, in kind of incel communities higher up on the out of 10. And that kind of feeds into, say, the TikTok shop and these things where and other like cheap stores where you can buy these looks maxing products for like £5 and they're marketed to kids, which is basically not regulated.
Earlier, you mentioned about desensitization, and so did you, Lisa, and how social media can often, desensitize us to a lot of things, specifically when it comes to violence. But do you think there has been almost a problem with sensationalization instead, where particularly in terms of mental health, I think a lot of the older generations tend to have a slightly negative view on the way that we treat mental health because the media sensationalizes it and leads people to believe that, we're all mentally ill and we all have all of these issues and we all do this and that, but it's not true. Do you think that's an issue, especially when trying to communicate mental health and needs to older generations through social media?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think definitely one that I agree with. I think the way social media works is that things are sensationalized. You see something happens on social media and then a newspaper will write a headline about it that doesn't make any sense. And there's this idea that as young people, we're snowflake generation, we're just over medicalizing everyday experiences. Like everybody's got anxiety now. But actually, it's not the case. People have always had anxiety, but now it's much more accepted to talk about it. And I think there's the issue of social media can be great for actually talking about mental health, and I I've learned a lot about OCD and myself from social media, but also there are certain, I think it's a very small minority, but certain people on social media who sensationalize and misrepresent mental health disorders. I have OCD, as I mentioned, but one of the most annoying things I find is when people will say that they've got OCD because they want to have all their books in line. Yeah, exactly. Like ADHD, yeah. And actually, for an hour, I went to a rugby match. For an hour of the rugby match, my parents had bought me expensive tickets. And all I could think about was whether I flushed the toilet. People don't understand that bit of OCD because it's not a really interesting thing to post on social media. But certain parts of OCD are kind of glamorized, and influencers talk about it. And it's great having influencers talk about it, but it's when, again, the balance of raising awareness and actually doing more harm than good if you're just talking about it and you don't actually know what you're talking about.
It's like the 5% ruining it.
Yeah, because it is so great that people are talking about mental health online. And I think that's what older generations sometimes mistake. The fact that young people are more open about it is a really positive thing. But often it's misconstrued that young people are lazy. Yeah. But it's actually some more people are talking about it, which is really good.
Just a question. What is your viewpoint on generational trauma and how it a lot of people don't realize that some children might have something that they're really struggling with, and parents don't realize it actually stemmed from them.
Yeah.
They didn't heal. So how do you think that older generations should adapt and sort of not fight it in that sense? Because a lot of people in the older generation, they fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
That's to do with homophobia, transphobia, a bunch of, even with neurodivergent people, they retaliate because they don't understand it. And as soon as we put a label on it, people think oh no, it's an issue. We can't talk about it. It's a disgrace.
Yeah.
I really think that older generations should be more adaptable. From your point on that.
Yeah, I have to. Generation trauma is not one of my expertise, but I think that what you were saying is really key. It's about communicating, and actually, it's not a zero-sum game. Just because older generations had difficulties growing up doesn't mean that younger generations aren't having difficulties growing up. Just because younger generations have difficulties now doesn't mean that it was easy growing up before. And I think that understanding that and having compassion for each other is so important. And actually having those conversations are really important, because we can learn so much from other people, and like social media has never been around like it is now. AI has never been around, but there's been similar things in the past, and how like the struggles for rights. You talked about homophobia, transphobia. We've had movements in the past, and we can learn from some of the people who are part of them, and actually having, I think, as I say, compassion for other generations, and not being, like I said, I think often it can be a blame game. Older generations blame younger generations for not working and not wanting to work, but and younger generations blame older generations for ruining the environment and that kind of thing. But actually, nobody wins when we do that. We've got to talk and really try and learn from each other.
I'm really curious. What was your schooling like with OCD and being diagnosed with depression?
Yeah, so it was really difficult. I talked to my mum a lot, and she always told me that you're one of these people that isn't built for school, and I wasn't built for school. I got basically every school I went to. I got bullied. It's so weird because I used to play rugby, so I don't anymore. It's too dangerous. But yeah, I think why did they ever bother playing that? But I was playing like 5-6 times a week. So I was in the rugby team, and I got like really they're very masculine environments, very macho culture. You can't show weakness at all. And when you're a 13-year-old talking about OCD and one of my compulsions, so I obsessed about, as I said, harming other people, being rude. So if I accidentally brushed against somebody, I'd have to apologize and have to apologize and have to apologize. And kids pick up on any kind of difference. So if you're doing that, then kids are going to pick up on it. And even worse. And during COVID, I became quite isolated. I was wiping the desks after all my lessons, because you guys will know, like, we kind of got, in 2020, we kind of got thrown back into schools.
Yeah.
Like, everybody else was like about social distancing, and then you just got thrown into schools with like 30 people in the classroom.
Yeah.
And then you just stuck in that single
all day. And it's like, so I hadn't left my house for like 6 months, but then
all of a sudden you're just in the same room with the same 30 people the entire day.
Yeah.
Move around.
Yeah. And then I was in year 11, so I had to go to, like, it was like, if I don't go to school, then I'm not going to get my GCSEs. If I, but then for me, like, people say, what's the worst that can happen? But for me, if I went to school, I was literally thinking I was going to ruin my life. So, because I went through a period during COVID where I went out to do the weekly food shop. And then for the next like 3 months, it was all I could think about, the guilt. I thought that I'd like harm loads of people by going out, even though I had no reason to. So for me, every time I went out, it was kind of like, if I go out, am I going to be guilty for another 3 months? And I thought I was going to be worried about this trip to the supermarket until I was like 70. And so that was always playing in my mind. And then, so I was like wiping the desk. I was, I didn't like opening doors. So I just wait at like the toilet door for somebody else to come and open it. And you know, it was horrible at the time, but it was horrible in myself. And also because, people just pick up on it, don't they? And, do that. So the long answer to your question is, yeah, I didn't enjoy school at all. And I think part of it was just I wasn't cut out for school, but part of it was, people weren't the nicest. But the thing is, I think you said earlier about the generational thing. People are scared and often react negatively to things they don't know. And a lot of the people that I was at school and I would say weren't nice to me then, I've had conversations with now, and a lot of them reach out about my mental health, the stuff that I do. So, all's well that ends well, I guess. But yeah, the school was.
I have a controversial question that I want to pose to you.
I'm ready.
Controversial, don't worry.
You get me cancelled.
Do you think that social media helps mental health or damages mental health more?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
You can start off.
Wait, finish your.
Just because obviously you can find support systems.
Yeah.
Social media, you can, learn things. There's awareness, there's contact and support groups, but then you also have looks maxing, you've got glamorization of disorders, you've got sensationalization of mental health disorders. So do you think it does more good or does more bad for mental health?
So, okay, me personally, like, for example, my family and I are neurodivergent. And growing up, it's statistically proven that females are much better at masking. And for boys, it's very generalized, which I think should be, but topic for a different day. And my family, they were very, like, they weren't afraid of it. They're not afraid of it. It's just more, they feared how people would see me. And I completely understand that. And to be honest, social media for me was kind of healing. And I'm so grateful to have not fallen onto the negative side at like the 5% that we were talking about earlier. I'm so like grateful that I haven't fallen into that. But learning about myself through other people's experiences was really healing, and it made me understand I'm not weird. I'm just me. And honestly, being neurodivergent makes me so much better. Because I love seeing things differently. I love seeing things better. And it makes me, like, in terms of your question, Bella, I personally think it healed me, but I know that it can be so damaging for the wrong people. It can be damaging because it's wrong. Because some people really just make you feel like you're so different, but in the wrong way. And it can lead to suicide, it can lead to self-harm, and it's like really damaging to especially young minds. Youthful minds such as ourselves. And so I'm grateful that I didn't fall onto it, but me personally, it was a good experience. But I know for others, I can't vouch for others because I can't, I'm me myself. But for me, it wasn't too bad, but I don't know about other people. I'm very 50-50 on it.
It's such a difficult one, because one of the debates taking place now is whether we should ban social media for under 16s. And working with FlipGen, and we've had to come out with a statement and a position, and it's been so divisive in the campaigning world. There's about 50-50 split between charities and organisations that want social media banned and those who don't. And we've come out on the side of not banning social media, because vulnerable communities, communities like the neurodivergent communities. I've got a friend who has long COVID, so that's been the only kind of escape for her when she's inside. And so we've come out on that. So social media has a lot of positives, and also obviously it's got so many negatives. So it's really important for us to, I think, talk about the fact that we don't want a social media ban, but we don't want a status quo either. I think everybody would agree that, except maybe the people who are, running the social media companies, that something's got to change, because we have graphic content, you have algorithms, you have people addicted to their phones, you have all these things. But I think we're now in a position where banning social media could make it worse. People will
create backlash.
And people will still use their phones, and they'll probably migrate. So the early research from Australia shows that young people are still using their phones for the same amount of time, but they're still on different apps. So they're going to Roblox, they're going to ones that aren't banned, and I just think they're going to be less regulated. So you're going to be less aware of where the children are. We're still going to be using their phones, but I guess it's not quite answering your question directly of whether it's beneficial or not, because I think if I could go back 20 years and get rid of social media, then I think I would. And so that's probably the answer to your question. But at this point in time, I think that the best way we can deal with it is through regulation and through education. And that's kind of what we're pushing for, because it is such a difficult question.
It's not a straight yes or no.
And that's the thing I asked, because there is no simplistic answer. Like, I have actually had the opposite experience to you. I mean, me personally, I'm not on any social media. I quit about 2 years
I have so much admiration for that. I respect you so much for that.
Well, I had a lot of things going on in my life, and unfortunately social media was meaning that I was in contact with the wrong people, and my community wasn't right for me. And so the support and help of my family, they said you should just stop. And I did. And even the social media I have now, I hardly use it. I've taken a very big step back, and I think that's changed my perspective on a lot of things. And it can be so amazing, because I did find support communities, especially during COVID, there was so much awareness and there was so much friendliness because everybody was lonely, essentially. However, I've stepped back and I've seen that I was being exposed to extremist left-wing politics, extremist right-wing politics. I was seeing, you know, this sensationalization. I was being desensitized. There was so much going on that, obviously, it's not the right choice for everybody, but for me personally, it was the right choice to just step back. And I think that's what makes it so interesting, because you said about, you know, the regulation for under 16-year-olds. And I think social media has become really, really regulated. I mean, if you think back 5-10 years ago, we had websites like Omegle, for example.
Yeah.
Which, that's a very controversial topic, obviously, because originally when it was introduced, it was an amazing idea. However, we all know that it didn't end up that way. And I think
people use and abuse it.
Yeah.
I think you can apply the same concept, definitely not the same situation, but you can apply the same principles to the social medias of today. And so I just wanted to ask you and see your opinion, because there is no straightforward answer on it.
I think what you mentioned there about the extremes, like left wing and right wing, and sensationalize, the issue with social media and the way it works is extremes always do better than moderate.
Yeah.
Like if I post a photo of like I'm having my lunch today, like this is not going to do well on social. Whereas if you look at the first YouTube videos, like I'm going to the zoo, like this is I think this is what social media should be. It should be about connecting people with their friends, where you can stay in touch. But now the way social media works is it's just so polarized. Like it's either like extreme left or extreme right, black or white. There's no nuance or middle, and then that creates the issues of you know, that creates the problems that we're finding, and that kind of integrates into society, that I think young people are less able to have those nuanced opinions. And yeah, I think social media is more regulated than it's ever been, but I think so we're advocating for
Flip Gen.
Yeah, Flip Gen. So we've got a manifesto, and we've got a campaign group called For Us. So we want technology and the digital world built for us rather than at our expense. So we've got a manifesto where we're calling for kind of a ban on addictive design rather than a ban on social media. So a ban on or transparent algorithms, get rid of autoplay, like tie warnings when you spent half an hour on social media, education for all, and a ban on companion AI, because I think that's going to be the new social media. Where I've been on character AI, and it's just horrendous what you can do on there, even as a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And I think like I was just messing with it, research, and I had a 13-year-old account, so I was on there as a 13-year-old, and in this one kind of scenario, it was like Russian boyfriend or something.
Yeah.
And this Russian boyfriend ended up hitting me on it. And it's like, I think this is a massive issue as well. And will people, if we ban social media, will people start using that instead and looking for that for connection?
And the thing is, I think like when it comes to all these social medias like Instagram, Snapchat, even things like Omegle, this character AI, any other kind of AI chatbot, obviously it does have benefits. For some people, it can be wonderful. But I think what your team and FlipGen are doing with the idea of education, I think is absolutely amazing, because the issue isn't directly social media. It's, you know, about people don't know how to use it. They don't know the dangers. And so I think being able to educate people on that is something really wonderful, you know?
Thank you.
Do you know what I find so damaging about the media? How everything is so generalized. Like there's so much stuff that is, this is going to sound like I'm an old lady, and you know, I'll take it. But we have so much access to things that weren't like really accessible back in the day. Back in the day, like I'm in my 50s. But like so much violence, pornography, all of that stuff. It's so, you can find anywhere at this point.
Yeah.
It's really damaging for younger viewers. And like nowadays, like you look around and everyone's glued to a phone.
Yeah,
especially the younger generation.
Yeah.
Like, what happens to social life?
Yeah.
Kids.
I get called an iPad kid.
We've all been an iPad kid. I like, Roshan. But at some point, it gets to a point where it's so damaging to a person's mental health, especially when you're influential and you're like your brain hasn't developed properly.
Yeah.
You can't form an opinion yet. You're basing it off of what you see.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's great to stay informed, but obviously, 15-year-olds don't need to see, or even some 16-year-olds, they don't need to see radicalized politicians. They don't need to see, violence. They don't need to see the extreme natures and the bad things we were talking about. That's not right for a 14-year-old. It's not right for their brain. It's issues.
Yeah, and I think especially it comes back to the education, and if you don't realize it's going on, and as slightly older, we kind of can assess what we see on social media and go, this isn't representative of the whole real world if we see something radical. But when you're growing up and you might not read the news or listen to the news, you kind of think that that's the norm. And because you've got an echo chamber where everything you see is controlled and all the comments on everything you see is controlled and designed to keep you online, then I think that's where the issue really comes. And if you don't have that education, but yeah, I do agree. It's, as to your point, I think young people have access to so much that they've never had access to, and they can access it all without their parents knowing as well. I think that's a scary thing. It's one thing if you have to go to, say, a shop and you get these things because there's it's slightly more tangible evidence. But I think most parents have absolutely no idea of what their children are viewing online, which is there's no failure on parents or anybody. It's such a difficult thing because they're not given the tools to sort it either. But yeah, it is a scary kind of time and proposition, and something has to be done about it.
Okay. I have one final question for you before we wrap up. With the idea of, obviously we've said how addicting social media is, and we said that how, at the end of the day, we are the generation of the media, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, we're generations of social media. We've grown up with it. And realistically, the majority of us use it a lot. Do you think that certain institutions, such as the police, the education systems, do you think they should get more involved in social media to be able to support the young community?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think particularly education, I think that we've got to a point where education has to be around social media as well. And schools are where you learn. You don't just learn like maths and English at schools. You learn how to be an adult. You learn how to operate, and being a human and being part of society is now about social media. So I think that schools absolutely have a real duty to convey that information and to help young people understand what's going on. It's difficult because schools are so stretched, and teachers don't have time and resources to do it. But I think that is a wider thing from kind of top down that needs to be implemented. And then I also, as you said, the police, it's controversial at the moment because there's talk of like policing thoughts and things you tweet on social media or post on social media can now land you in prison. But I think it makes total sense that if you say something in person to somebody and it would be illegal, that it's also illegal online, because you're more likely to reach more people online, and I think that it should be policed a lot more. I couldn't go out or any of us couldn't go out and call somebody something like be racist or be homophobic, but on social media it's kind of allowed and a bit more normalized. So I think that there is a duty there as well to make sure from the top down as well that what goes on social media, there needs to be the same standards applied to social media and the real world. And I think that's where the police come into it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much. We've learned a lot from you. I know I have.
I have. Well, do you have any final words for our audience?
Yeah, I'd say just
stay off social media.
No, well, it's a difficult one. I have many words, but I'd say that in terms of the mental health, keep talking. Whether you think you have a problem or not, I'd say it's always worth reaching out, and it's really, really difficult to reach out to people. But it's so important. I remember when I first reached out, I really didn't want to, but it was the best thing I ever did. So I say that in terms of mental health and in terms of social media, just as long as you do it mindfully, there's nothing wrong with social media. But I think, and we talked about the blame game earlier, don't blame yourself for spending time on social media, for doom scrolling, to do all these things, because that's what social media platforms are designed to do. So I'd say be compassionate to everybody, and that includes yourself.
Well, thank you very much. Wrap up with a nice little cheer.
Cheers. Thank you.
And cheers to you. Thank you for tuning in for Afternoon Tea podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.
Gosh, we've spilled the tea, haven't we? I need to go refill my cup.
Before you go, if you like what we're doing and you want to support us, please have a chat with us at
Afternoon tea at youthtv.co.uk.
Stick the Kettle On, and we'll catch you in a bit.
See ya.